Okay people, this is the big one. This is now my wrap up of how we've done with our heat pump throughout the first winter. So I'm going to start off with a quick review of our March data, and then I'm going to roll that into the whole winter, and then finally at the end of the video I'm going to compare our previous winter's data with our old gas boiler comparison to the winter that we've just experienced with our heat pump, and show you the positives and some of the things that we've learnt along the way. So I'll try and make it kind of short and snappy and not waffle on too much, although I appreciate that some of you loyal viewers, you like the waffling. Anyway, first headline figure, our March COP, our coefficient of performance was 4.25. The average temperature for March, interestingly, I think, is 7.97 degrees for us here in Southampton, which is exactly the same as the average temperature for February, to 2 decimal places. Find that kind of strange and interesting. But let's move forward on some of the data. A quick recap if you're new to the channel. On the left there is our old gas boiler, non-condensing, very inefficient. On the right you can see with the help of one of my trusty assistants, we set about upgrading the radiators, and most of them we tripled them in size. If I move here, you can see that we went for some that were taller. We went from single panel to double panels with convectors, and so we effectively, you can see our little alley down the side of the house that became a radiator graveyard as we slowly went around the house upgrading those to prepare for a heat pump and to make it efficient. Eventually we had an installation from British Gas. Yes, shock horror. We had a Vaillant 7 kilowatt Arotherm Plus installed with the Vaillant cylinder and Vaillant controls, and we run it fully weather compensated, no internal room influence whatsoever. And something to bear in mind, one thing that may be affecting my efficiency slightly, on the right hand side there you can see some 15mm pipe running horizontally, and that spurs off to 10mm microbore. So nearly all of the radiators downstairs have drops like 2-meter-ish, 2 to 2.5 meter long 10mm microbore copper drops that go to those radiators. No issues at all, no problem. And reminder that it's a British Gas bargain basement installation, so this is not a fancy Heat Geek Elite or Heat Geek Assured one. Okay, these are my actual figures. You can see that the heating COP was up at 4.41. The domestic hot water was at 3.59. I'm pretty sure and pretty confident that I've optimized the settings as much as I can. The only way that I could get better performance from my hot water cycle is by having a different cylinder that has a larger capacity coil with more volume. Unfortunately, the Vaillant ones aren't the best. I didn't know this when I was researching. They're good. There's much worse out there, but there's also much better out there that has a much larger surface area that can transfer the heat energy from the coil into the stored water. Anyway, here's my figures. You can see in the orange is the domestic hot water, and then the teal or blue, depending on how well your screen is calibrated, is what's been is for the space heating. And on the left pie chart is the electricity used, and those figures are in kilowatt hours. On the right hand side is the energy that's been produced in kilowatt hours. Right, so here's a month by month comparison now since we've had the heat pump installed. You can see that our COP has fluctuated slightly above or slightly below 4 in the dark blue, and then once again in the teal you can see the average temp. Apart from January, which was cold, it's been a fairly mild winter, and so once again you can see February and March, it's almost exactly the same, not much difference there. February running costs was £23.58 for all of that, for a lovely warm home 24 hours a day and very comfortable and nice. I'll show you some of the breakdown of that. It's only that cheap because of the solar. If we didn't have solar, it would be £59 on the tracker tariff. If we were on the price cap, it would be £95. So this is a reminder to you out there. If you're not on Octopus Energy, join up using my referral code. The link is in the description. You get £50, I get £50. Jump onto either the tracker tariff or the agile tariff. You don't need, the good thing with those tariffs is you don't have to have home storage batteries, you don't have to have an EV, you don't need any special equipment in your house. You do need a smart meter, of course, but as long as you've got a smart meter, or you can get a smart meter installed, they're free by the way, then you can be on the tracker tariff or the agile tariff, and you'll save yourself a huge amount. Actually, as we're now using the heat pump less, it's looking like the agile tariff is going to start being better for us. At the moment it's better by just a small amount, but I think going into April, May, agile is going to start to beat tracker by a little bit more than I previously said in some of my other videos. Anyway, on the right hand side you can see the gas figures. So if you're on the gas price cap, it would have cost me considerably more, and if you're on gas tracker, it also would have cost more than the heat pump on the electricity tracker. This doesn't include the standing charges. I've had my gas cut off. I've done another video about that. Once again, transfer onto Octopus, because they're one of the only suppliers who will do it free of charge for you. Get rid of the gas, get rid of the standing charges. I think now the standing charges have gone up. I think gas is maybe £110 per year, just the standing charges, without using anything at all. So anyway, I hope this is the first starting comparing the running costs in terms of the financials. Bearing in mind that the gas figures used here are for an 80% efficient condensing gas boiler, which is the typical efficiency of most homes in the UK. Yours may be slightly higher if you've got good controls and you've got good capacity and everything else, and you're running the system well. You might be a little bit higher than that, but there is potential that you may be even worse than 80% as well. So here, because everyone always complains about what I say about gas boiler efficiency, our previous boiler was a 60% non-condensing boiler. So if we were on the price cap, it would have cost us £176 in the last month. 70% efficient, 150, 80, 90. You can see, you can pick out there whatever you think. If you want to compare the 90% efficient one, then on the price cap rates, you need a heat pump at a coefficient of performance of 3.5 to break even. These are the figures as of March, so I'm aware that by the time this video goes live, the price cap rates will have changed, and that does change the delta between the running cost of a gas boiler and a heat pump, and the heat pumps are going to have to be a little bit more efficient if we're going to reach that cost parity or better. But anyway, if you could get your heat pump at 4.5, then you're really winning. If you're at a coefficient of performance of 4, then you're winning, even with the new rates, which I'll probably go into in my next video anyway. This is my year-on-year cost comparison. You can see that my gas has been completely cut off, but these are the bills. So you can see this time last year in March, I should have put the actual numbers here, but it's approximately, I think it's 276 that our energy bill was last March. And now you can see we are right down there, way below. I think that must be even including the standing charge as well, because I think that's about £34, £35 or something, including standing charge. But that is also including a little bit of solar. So in some of the next few slides, I'll go through and I'll kind of break that down for you so you can understand what's come from which part of that we're benefiting from solar. And roughly speaking, if it wasn't for solar, we probably would have been similar to the February figures anyway. But as you can see, it's a huge reduction in our bills, hundreds of pounds every single month, and we're very happy. CO2 emissions are actually where the bigger savings are. We emitted just 34.78 kilograms of CO2. That is based on the carbon intensity of the grid throughout March, and I have in previous months just averaged that over the month, but in this month I did take the daily figures, and they're all imported into my spreadsheet. Took the Vaillant data by CSV, imported that all into the spreadsheet, and also then subtracted the kilowatt hours of solar that we've used for the heat pump, because obviously there's no carbon emissions attached to that, and that's how we arrive at that figure. This is the, if we had an 80% efficient gas boiler, we would have emitted 377 kilograms of CO2. That is assuming that we put the same amount of heat into our house over that month, whether that's blasting more in the evening or whether that's running it a steady state, you know, low modulation, low flow temperature boiler. Still, it's over 90% reduction on your carbon emissions. So if that's your primary motivator, a heat pump is a no-brainer. Just do it. Here you can see that for the first time, more than 50%, almost exactly 60% of the energy that we use for our heat pump came from solar and about 40% from the grid. That's for a few factors. If I used some bus integration and maybe integrated home assistant, then I could definitely improve that. There's definitely things that we could do. I'm also still running my hot water cycle in the evening just because I have to make the hot water last for the whole family of 5. Otherwise, if I heat it when we've got some free excess solar, then it just doesn't last until my shower in the morning and the next morning. So yeah, I'm not really sure what to do about that. I have also considered maybe doing 2 hot water cycles, but it's not very efficient. You really want to get the best COP for your domestic hot water. You want to heat the tank from as cool as possible. You really want to empty that tank out before you reheat it. Okay, if you really want to see all the figures, rubbish, my screen grab has cut the bottom off. Anyway, pause this if there's anything interesting in there to you. Last time round, I cut the top off, and this time I've cut the bottom off as all the totals. But essentially, you can see how the temperature fluctuated throughout the month. It was really that middle part of the month was very nice and warm, really, for March. It was, you know, good temperatures, and then the temperatures fell back down a little bit towards the end of the month. You can see the carbon. This on the right hand side is Octopus Tracker for these are the electric rates and the cost associated with it. On the left hand side here in red is where I've done the gas tracker prices and how much it would have cost to run the gas boiler if I was on gas tracker. Here throughout the month you can see in the blue line is the outside temperature and the red line is our COP, and you can see apart from the couple of cold days at the beginning and one little day, I think it was 5.6 degrees on that day from memory, that it dropped below 4. Otherwise we were comfortably over 4, and there are a couple of peaks there where we were getting up into the high numbers. You can actually see back on this page, it's this column here, the green one. You see, what was our highest figure for that month? 4.86, 4.8, 4.84. Yeah, so we didn't get we did get better days in February actually, where we got slightly better, but that one, for example, 4.86, it's 10.9 degrees outside. I'll show you also collect this data into the scatter graph, which will lead us nicely into the comparison of the winters. Once again, why have I cut this off? Anyway, I'm going to have to tell you what these temperatures are now. This black line here is 0 degrees. This is 2 degrees, this is 4 degrees, this is 6 degrees, this is 8 degrees, and this is 10, and this is 12. So as you can see, as we've established in the past, the trend line is still very much 5 degrees or above, then we're pretty safe that we're going to be achieving a COP of 4, roughly speaking, and the scatter graph is slowly being populated with more data and more information that is just reinforcing the trend line. Okay, this moves us into the comparison between the 2 winters. So if you've stuck around to this part, this is probably the best bit. So I hope a lot of people are still with me. This is the winter just gone. So the one that we're just coming to the end of now. I mean, 20th of March, it was officially spring, so we're officially out of winter. But anyway, the total heat pump running cost, excluding the solar for the whole of winter, that's from installation day, the middle of November, was £334.22. Our total COP, when averaged out, was 4.02, so we just made it over 4, which I'm very happy about. Our electricity consumed, heat produced, and a massive carbon saving of 1,751 kilograms of CO2 saved compared to an 80% efficient gas boiler. If you haven't watched previous videos, then you may not know that I live in a 4-bed detached house, 140 square meters. We have a couple of bits that are not optimal at all. We have an old conservatory. We've put an insulated roof on it to kind of make it into an extension, but it's still got glazing all around it, meters and meters of glazing. Not very helpful to being the most efficient. But the reason I compared it to an 80% efficient boiler is not that that's what we previously had, but that's what we were considering installing. So this is really vindicating the choice to not put in another gas boiler, because our previous one was 26 years old. It was at its end of life. It needed changing. But the jump to a heat pump was definitely a smart one. Now, looking back, the previous winter, just our gas bill was £856.84. In addition to that, we needed supplementary electrical heating because we didn't have any radiators in our kitchen dining area at all. So I've gone through the bills and kind of averaged out the electrical usage, and then worked out that there's an excess of well over £100 anyway. I actually think that we probably used about £140 of direct electrical heating. We were using those infrared patio heaters to try and keep ourselves warm while we're eating our dinner. But I didn't want to skew things too far on the heat pump side because it doesn't really need any advantage. So I'm giving the old heating system the benefit of the doubt, and I'm adding on an extra £100. That being said, because we did add insulation February last year, so kind of towards the end of the winter last year, we added insulation on that part of the house. Some of that £100 would have been taken away anyway, even if we went to a gas boiler, but we would have had to install the radiators there. It's very convoluted. If you've been watching my channel for a long time, you'll understand. You will have seen the whole situation and understand why I've put that as I have. Now, this is the cost comparison, and here is the difference between my old non-condensing, inefficient boiler, which we assume the efficiency to be around 60%, especially once the gas engineers took out the old boiler. They told me that the gas valve was sticky, was slightly open at all times, so it's constantly leaking. I can't remember the figure now. I want to say 15 millibar, but someone will probably correct me in the comments. I think when it was new, our old boiler, I think on the original data sheet said it was 64.6 efficient. Once again, in a previous video, I did go through all this data. But anyway, in the blue is 2022-2023. That was our first winter when we moved into this house, and you can see the financial cost of heating about 957, and now we're down to 334. So a huge reduction. We're almost a third. We've almost knocked off 60%. Well, it's more than 60% in fact. But the biggest saving, of course, which kind of skews the scale here a little bit, is the carbon reduction. That is just ginormous. Once again, 2,985 kilograms, reducing down to 260 kilograms. And that being said, this is also not factoring in the solar. This is just focusing on the heat pump versus gas boiler. So here's a few of my conclusions as I try and wrap this video up, and hopefully it's under 20 minutes. We'll see when we get to editing. Number one, £623 saved in heating bills in one winter. I'm going to say that the £100 may be due to added insulation. So I'm going to try and give the boiler the benefit of the doubt. But there's no denying that if you've got a condensing boiler, you're going to save closer to, what did we say here, 1,751 kilograms of CO2. If your boiler's running really efficient, then you might do a little bit better than that. You might be closer to 1,500 kilograms, but that's still a ton and a half of CO2. Depending on how many miles you do, an electric car won't save you that much carbon. Really nothing else you do will save you that much carbon in one in one decision, in one purchasing decision. So for us, huge carbon saving. If we split that between the 5 people in the house, then per person, maybe it's not as big. But anyway, I'm waffling, as you know, always. Number 3, the comfort levels have improved massively. It's hard to overstate that. We now go, if we go and visit friends or family, everyone's houses feel cold to us now, even though their thermostats are set higher, but this steady state heating and the thermal mass, our house is always warm all of the time, and we're not paying a fortune for it. We're saving loads of money. There's no cold and hot spots in the house anymore, and we don't have rooms that are warmer or cooler, so we don't have any of that shock factor to our bodies as well. So we're just so much more comfortable. And then point number 4 is you don't necessarily need a perfect installation. This is something that's discussed to death on social media. A lot of people are really scared about having an installation that doesn't work well and costs them a fortune in running costs. This shows that I've just got a bog standard basic British gas bargain, all of the B's, bog standard basic bargain British gas installation, and it's working perfectly fine. A copper 4 is brilliant. We've got enough hot water for a family of 5, as long as we're getting the timings right. We're saving huge amounts of carbon, and we didn't go through and rip out all of the microbore pipework. We do have a buffer tank. Oh, there's another B. And so there are some compromises that have been made on the installation, and a few bits that need to be rectified that we haven't quite got to, but the equipment's been perfectly reliable. It's just our first winter so far. We'll see how it goes throughout the summer. I'll probably move over to giving you quarterly updates on how the heat pump's performing with the hot water cycle and how much of it I'm able to do from solar. So this will be my last monthly update of the heat pump until maybe next winter, when we can compare and see if it remains consistent, and see if we can still plot against that trend line on the scatter graph. So thank you for watching. I hope there's been some information in here that's been useful to you. Please like and subscribe, because the YouTube overlords are on my back about it. It started off as friends and family saying, you really got to tell people to like and subscribe and all that stuff. And now I get emails from YouTube. YouTube is telling me to, like, force you guys, guilt trip you, do all of that stuff. The most important thing to me is that we can dispel some of the myths. We can try and reject some of the misinformation around heat pumps. For me, that's the most important thing. Spreading this message will help, as we all share our own personal experiences. So if you've got someone who is cynical about heat pumps, or they read too many Telegraph articles, then share this video with them, and let's continue to push back against all of this misinformation, because heat pumps are brilliant and it's only changed our life for the better. No negatives at all that we have yet come across, apart from a week of disruption whilst it was installed, but that's par for the course with home improvements. Anyway, this is me signing off. Goodbye everyone.